everything that Trump has done is pushing the world away from the dollar. That's why the dollar is going down. That's why gold is going up. That's why China and India and Russia have never had stronger relationships than the ones they have right now, right? We are, shooting ourselves, again, not in the foot, but in the head, the housing emergency. So all of this is inflationary. All of this is going to, drive up drive up gold and push down the dollar as we expand money supply. Of course, the Fed is going to have to do QE because no one else is going to want to buy this stuff. Gold keeps going up while the dollar goes down. Peter Schiff says the trend is getting stronger. The U.S. is losing control of the world economy as China, India, and Russia strengthen their ties with each other. He says that Trump's actions are making that happen faster. This year, gold prices have already gone up more than 40%, and gold miners like the GDX have doubled in value. This shows how quickly money is moving into hard assets. Schiff looks to the past to help it figure things out. The market went through the same kind of strong growth from 2001 to 2011 when gold broke above $2,000 and then soared past $3,000. During that earlier bull run, the price of the metal increased by 6 times. He thinks that $12,000 for gold is not a crazy prediction, but a reasonable long-term goal if the pattern holds. He thinks that we are still more near the start of that cycle than the end. At the same time, the home market is failing after the Federal Reserve messed with it for years. People couldn't afford homes when mortgage rates were low, and prices haven't gone down even though rates have gone up. Instead, officials are making the same mistakes they made before by lowering lending standards, supporting risky mortgages, and having the Federal Reserve take on more debt through new rounds of quantitative easing. Schiff says that this plan could keep house prices up for a while, but it will hurt the dollar. He thinks that every new action hurts trust in U.S. dollars, which makes gold stronger and speeds up the global shift that was already happening. Thanks for reading this breakdown. If it helped you, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with other people who are paying attention. We're going to keep giving you sharp analysis and voices that really know what's going on. Thanks for seeing. 41% gains in gold so far this year. Check out the stocks that mine for gold. The GDX has now doubled, and it has doubled this year as well. We're basically through a what? There are 8 months in a year, right? And the GDX has doubled. That's right. I remember putting out the special report on how to buy gold best in April. You could say I was pleading with my gold buyers not to buy gold because I told you to buy these gold stocks with that money because they were so cheap compared to gold that I had never seen them before. I said that gold below ground was such a good deal. You have to buy it instead of the kind that grows above ground. But I also saw the best set of factors for the price of gold that I had ever seen, and I expect a big bang. Well, the breakout happened in 2024 when gold broke through 2,000 and went up above 3,000. The price of gold went up 6 times between 2001 and 2011, so I think this move will be at least as big. That's $12,000 gold if you multiply 2,000 by 6. Our goal is to raise $12,000. Right now, we're only about a third or a fourth of the way there. The bottom is so much farther away than the top. Yes, it would have been great if you bought around 2,000, but I don't care. Now is the time to buy it. The same goes for metal. Was telling everyone that 30 was the floor. Do you need to spend $30 on silver? There wasn't much risk of going down. After I said that, we almost never went below it. Let's buy $40 and $41 worth of silver now. That's the problem. And I've talked to people at Schiff Gold and other gold businesses that know about it. Sales are slow. Not many people want to buy the high. What do you think? It's okay to buy drugs to get high. You can't buy gold and silver if you don't buy the high. We're going up, so you need to buy the high. And the high you buy will be higher the longer you wait to buy it. You'll pay more if you wait, so you might as well buy it now. But that doesn't mean you'll never have a bad day or week. It's just not worth the wait. Reading the writing on the wall here is all you need to do to understand how significant this is. Even Bukele from El Salvador, right? You remember that the Bitcoin guy just said that he bought $50 million worth of gold for El Salvador? He didn't like gold when he bought Bitcoin a few years ago. He didn't buy more Bitcoin this time. Instead, he bought gold worth $50 million. Excellent work. That makes me happy. It would be even better if he could sell his Bitcoin and buy more gold. Also, Bitcoin wasn't even up today compared to gold's big rise. In fact, Bitcoin is only up about 18% so far this year. That's not bad, 18%. But gold is up 37%. It's said that Bitcoin is up a lot more than gold. It's meant to have a turbocharger. It's meant to be like gold, but stronger, right? The year is still young, though, so it's still up. Not good. You might also ask, why do we have a housing emergency if the economy is doing so well? Because the economy is so bad, there is an emergency. To go over this one more time, If we had the worst economy in the world under Biden, and it is still worse now, the job market is worse now than it was then. And inflation is going up, even though it's low. It's lower than its high point. Don't forget that Biden's first year in office was the worst for inflation. And that was something left over from Trump. More specifically, it was the Fed policy during COVID that Trump backed and signed off on. But Biden's first year working for Trump was the worst for inflation. He's likely going to die in the worst year. I believe that inflation will rise faster every year while Trump is in office. He's going to start with low inflation instead of high inflation at the beginning and it going down over time. The Republicans will lose Congress in the midterms and the White House from 2020 to 2028 because of rising prices that are expected to keep going up. The bigger problem is that Trump is abusing his power in ways that are against the Constitution, and Congress and the courts are letting him get away with it. An extreme left-wing socialist will take over after him and use that weapon with a lot more danger and truth than Trump did. This is what's wrong with making this slippery slide. All the Republicans who are okay with giving Trump more power, right? No matter how bad it is for him, they're okay with it because it's their guy. They won't be able to say anything when the other team gets that club and uses it in a way that is even worse than what Trump did. Okay, so there are a lot of things to worry about right now. I'll get to that. I wanted to talk about a few things during today's podcast that I might talk about on another episode. But the prices of homes are too high right now because of the housing crisis. Why do house prices go up so much? Because the Fed kept interest rates at zero for a long time. Because of this, a lot of people were able to get mortgages with very low rates, like 3 or 4%. People don't buy houses based on how much they cost, but on how much they pay each month. This means that the lower the monthly payment, the more a person can pay for a house. You now have a problem because home prices went up a lot, and so did interest rates. And house prices never went back down to a level that would have made payments cheaper. Of course, that will happen in the end. Some people may lose their homes because of this, which will lead to a lot of failures. Since many people can't sell their homes for more than what they owe, they're going to give up and mail in their keys. Now, some people are only living in their homes because they locked the doors. A low rate on a mortgage. That's stopping some people from selling, but some people will have to at some point. They might not be able to pay their bills if they have to cut prices to do it. So this could lead to more problems. Know what I mean? Trump is talking about how much money Fannie and Freddie are making and how he wants to take them private. They're going to lose a lot of money when home prices go down. Of course, the taxpayers have to pay for all of those costs, right? When these things become public, we talked about selling Fannie and Freddie again today. To say it again, they're not being sold off. They are only taking the gains private. In order to make the offer, they have to make that unstated guarantee clear. This means that the losses are being socialized in a way that has never been done before. Okay, so Donald Trump is going to do something that not even Franklin Roosevelt would do. No one would do it, not even Lyndon Johnson or Richard Nixon. That means Trump is very different from those leaders, right? Some of the most liberal leaders who pushed for big government ever. They are on the left of Donald Trump. He wants to do something that not even those guys were careless and foolish enough to do. I think it's because they didn't have any friends who stood to cash in. Okay, let's do it. So, I believe Trump is acting in ways that benefit our friends rather than our country. But again, I'm getting off track. Now let me get back to the issue at hand. That's why home prices would go down. All of those things would be bad, but they have to happen because the only way to fix house prices that are too high is for them to drop. Then people will be able to buy them. People are able to borrow money. For the same reason, they'll borrow more money at higher rates if they don't need to borrow as much. Let's say I have a 3% mortgage on a $500,000 house. If the price drops to $250,000, I might have the same payment with a 6% or 7% mortgage. I can swing it. The down payment is also less because the price of the house is less. That's the answer then. Trump does not like the free market, though. He apparently wants to do something different. They are also trying to take over the Federal Reserve, and I think what they'll try to do with Fannie and Freddie is lower the lending standards so that Fannie and Freddie can make even riskier loans than they have ever made with the full support of the U.S. government. This will allow them to give out a lot of credit. In order to support the housing market, they will likely make sure that the Federal Reserve starts a new program called quantitative easing, QE. This program will buy all of the risky mortgages that Fannie and Freddie back, as well as all of their bonds. All of this is, of course, just inflation. It's a huge increase in cash. You're only going to speed up the fall of the dollar and the rise of gold. Peter Schiff is saying that the Federal Reserve's independence is in danger. This is what made the dollar trustworthy around the world. Investors thought the Fed was above politics for many years. The dollar's authority will be lost if that idea is broken. Schiff says that the person who wins the presidency also rules monetary policy once the White House has full control of the Federal Reserve.
That means the government can make as much money as it wants. There are no limits on deficits, and there is no reason to cut back on spending.
He tells people that the Federal Reserve was never really a part of the government because the Constitution doesn't actually allow Congress to make paper money. It was made in 1913 as a private banking company. The Federal Reserve Fed stepped in as a go-between, managing credit and policy in a way that kept it out of direct political fights. Schiff says the Supreme Court might not get rid of the Fed, but they might say that its independence is illegal. This would mean that the Fed would have to answer to Congress and the president directly. That would make U.S. monetary policy look like it isn't biased at all, making it into a political tool. This made people around the world less confident in the dollar, which led to a faster move into gold and silver. We need to go back to the interview. So I think the Supreme Court might actually throw out the idea that the Federal Reserve is separate from the government and make it clear that all FOMC members work for the president and that the president can fire anyone he wants. For whatever reason, he thinks the firing is fair because he was chosen president. He has the power. People trust what he says. Because of this, he can fire a FOMC member if he thinks, for any reason, that they are not up to the job. For that will destroy the Fed's freedom. That is the risk. There you have it. If Trump wants to name a new FOMC member, the Senate will have to agree to the nomination. So the Senate might do it now, right? The Republicans might, but the president doesn't need new choices, even if not enough Republicans agree with what he knows to do. You can still get them together and make rules even if they're short, as long as Trump gets rid of enough board members who don't agree with him so that his supporters are in the majority. He can fire every FOMC member until the majority will do what he wants. Otherwise, he can fire all of them because policies are decided by a popular vote, right? If there are only 3 FOMC members left, then 2 of them win, right? But this will show everyone that the Federal Reserve is not a separate organization. And by the way, we've been telling you for a long time that the dollar is safe because the Federal Reserve is independent. This is why you can trust our money policy. The Fed is separate from the government. It's not about politics. But if that's not the case, if it's all about politics, then the president controls the Fed, which means that when we elect a new president, we also elect a new Fed head. A lot of people say that being head of the Federal Reserve is the most important job in the country. That's not possible for the most important job in the government, is it? For a person who isn't even allowed to be in office by our law. I think it will be very simple for the Supreme Court to say that everything is against the Constitution. They might not get rid of the Fed altogether, though. I think they'll just say that the Federal Reserve needs to answer to the President of the United States and the Congress in order to be in line with the Constitution. No way could it be a separate body that can do whatever it wants, right? I think that's what they'll rule, and that will send shockwaves through the world economy and financial market because now everyone will know that it's going to be debt monetization, right? There is no outside check that will ever make Congress or the President spend less than they earn. Why should they? Since they already run the Fed and can print money, they shouldn't have to cut spending, right? Just print out what they need. They'll keep rates as low as they need to. And the loss of independence is a big risk that no one is talking about. Of course, I don't think the Supreme Court will agree with me about why the Fed was separate, since it's not a government body. That's not true. The Federal Reserve is a group of private banks working together. The government does not own the member banks. They're not working for the government. People on the Federal Open Market Committee are chosen by the president and then approved by the Senate, even though they are nominated. They are given jobs outside of the government. Once they are hired, they are not responsible for anything. Yes, they can do whatever the hell they want during their 12-month or 12-year time. Yes, you can't say I don't agree with your choices. Don't say that because you don't like their money policy, right? If you could just fire them because you don't like the way they handle money, there would be no reason to serve for 12 years. A 12-year sentence is meant to make it impossible to get rid of them. To be clear, the answer is yes if there is a good reason that has nothing to do with their policy choices. And you can't make up a reason if it's clear that you don't agree with their policy choices. For that reason, you look for dirt, which doesn't count, right? It's clear what you want to do when you kiss. You are trying to fire someone because of the policies they have chosen, which is not within your power. You're trying to do it with this fake debt thing. But once more, the reason the Fed is separate is not something this court is going to talk about. Isn't that what the Federal Reserve does? The Constitution of the United States says that the government does not have the power to print money. That's why it didn't work. That's why the Fed was made. It made the Feds do something that it wasn't able to do on its own. Why? As stated in Article 1, Section 8, the Federal Reserve has the power to control money. In Article 1, Section 8, the federal government is given the power to make money and set the value of it. Just coins, please. What does it mean to coin money? It means to take money and turn it into a coin, right? Not a bill on paper. What is money in a coin? The law says that gold and silver are money. How do you understand this? Because Section 10 of Article 1 says that no state can make anything but gold and silver coins valid money. Okay, coins made of gold and silver. That is legal money, not a thing else. There you have it, the Constitution.
That doesn't say the federal government has to make anything other than gold and silver, someone might say. That's right, because the way the Constitution is written, the federal government can only do what Congress and the Constitution allow it to do. As long as the Constitution doesn't say otherwise, the states can do whatever they want. That's why the Constitution says that no state should print money or credit bills. Yes, that means states can't print their own money or accept bills of credit. How do I get a bill of credit? Is that money on paper? That's why the federal government can only make coins and not the states, which can't print money. It's not allowed to take bills of credit. It was actually written in earlier drafts, and you can see this in the Elliott debates. The first draft said that Congress would make money and credit bills. They also got rid of emit bills of credit by a vote of 9-2. That means it wasn't a mistake. They thought about letting the federal government print money. Then they said, no way, we don't want to let that happen, right? We had a bad time with the European, correct? We don't need any bills. The law was written to stop people from using paper money. Yes, there it would never be, at least not from the government. Now, private banks could issue as many bills of credit as they wanted, right? Banknotes could be made by private banks, and some of them did. Eventually, we got a central bank because of this, and the Federal Reserve's main job was to read business paper from other banks. I don't even want to talk about all the reasons why people thought a central bank would be a good idea, but the truth is that it had to be kept secret. They couldn't be part of the government because that would be against the law. That's why it had to be something different. However, I believe that the method they used to make it is also against the Constitution. And I think that's what the Supreme Court will decide about this setup, right? Of this, the Federal Reserve being separate from the government is against the Constitution. It should be a part of the government. The rest of the world won't wait quietly to see how America handles the test. Countries that are already moving their reserves away from treasuries and into bullion will speed up this process, which could change the way capital moves in ways that can't be undone. So the rise in gold isn't just a result of speculation. It's time to take a fresh look at where safety and trustworthiness really stand. The more important question is whether the U.S. can keep being at the center of the world's money system, or if trust will break down even more and lead to a lasting shift toward hard assets and alternative currencies. So stay tuned. Click like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss the weekly updates if you like real data-based views on the financial system. Thanks for your help, and I hope you enjoy the film.